Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa mawala. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Amir Adams and I am a member of the Muslim Students Association, which is of course based here in South Africa, alhamdulillah. And we have just received Sheikh Imran Hussein at the beginning of the month of Rajab in this Hijri year 1446 in accordance with sacred time. In accordance with the Gregorian calendar, it is the month of January and we are getting on into the next month, inshallah. Alhamdulillah, Sheikh has spent the entire month of Rajab with us in Cape Town, and this is Sheikh's last day, sadly so, for us here in the mother city at the southernmost tip in Africa. We're honored to have Sheikh after 10 years, alhamdulillah. When Sheikh was last here, Sheikh's beard was a different color, and alhamdulillah, Sheikh has honored us now all these years later, especially for the benefit of the younger generation. We thank Sheikh for his visit, and Sheikh will be going to the rest of the SADC region countries and will be visiting Durban and Johannesburg next, inshallah. When Sheikh came here, he informed us that he will be lecturing on three main topics. That is the Islamic implications, eschatological implications of regime change in Syria, the Islamic conception of sacred time, as well as the Islamic conception of a political system. These are the main topics that Sheikh expounded upon during his visit, and alhamdulillah, we as the Cape Town Muslim community benefited greatly from Sheikh, and we make dua that this will be one of many more visits to come, inshallah. Without further ado, we will engage with Sheikh now to ask him how his visit was in Cape Town thus far, and to of course give his indications as to what his future endeavors will be. Sheikh, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Amir.
So as a means of introductory comments, Sheikh has spent the entire month of Rajab with us, and we would like to ask Sheikh, how has Sheikh found Cape Town thus far, the mother city that Sheikh loves so much?
I always love to visit Cape Town. It's the most beautiful city in the world, in my opinion. The most beautiful city in the world. And I also have one of the best teams in Cape Town. I have teams all over the world of my students who organize my visits in different parts of the world. One of the best of the teams that I have is in Cape Town, and they've done the same job again this time as they've done in the past. And I'm grateful to Allah, who in His kindness gave me life. I had a massive heart attack, first time in my life, in November of 2023. And the main artery going to the heart was blocked 98%. And I was just a whisper away from the grave. But Allah is the one who writes life and writes death. And He did not write for me to leave the world as yet. So within hours of the heart attack, I was in the operating theater, and 2 stents were installed in my heart. And 2 months later, I got an invitation in February of 2024 to travel to Moscow to attend a conference. And my cardiologist in Trinidad gave me permission to travel. And I've been traveling for 1 year now with the heart attack. And so far, alhamdulillah, Allah has been kind to me that I was able to come to Cape Town, and I thank Him for that. I thank Him for that. Cape Town has a special place in my heart because this is one of the last places that my teacher, Maulana Fazlur Rahman Ansari, rahimahullah, visited. He came here in 1970 and 1972. And I am following in his distinguished footsteps 50 years later. It's always a pleasure to come here, and the response I usually get from Cape Town is a good response. But on this occasion, around the world as well as in Cape Town and in other parts of South Africa, there's a growing alarm in traditional Islamic scholarship, the people who graduate from the Darul Uloom, that my profile of scholarship poses a threat to them. yes, poses a threat to them. And they are, of course, correct, because Maulana Fazlur Rahman Ansari was totally dissatisfied with the model of scholarship in the Darul Uloom in his time. So when he launched the effort at his age, at that time, he got a negative response from them. But now, because of the internet, my message goes far and wide, much far and wider than his could go, because he never had the internet. And they see that this caravan is moving forward all the time. And that is what is causing them to be scared. And so now they are shutting the doors of the masjid on me. And that is affecting even Cape Town. But Allah's kindness is there, and so while they were shutting the doors of masjid, there were still some masajid which opened their doors for me. I'm particularly grateful to Masjid al-Qarar, Masjid Pine, I can't remember the name.
Masjid al-Quds.
Masjid al-Quds in particular, we had one of the largest gatherings ever for Salatul Jummah at Masjid al-Quds, and I was invited to speak there. And then in the night time we had a lecture at Masjid al-Quds with a very large gathering. But other than that, the gatherings in different masajid were not very large.
Indeed, alhamdulillah. And as Sheikh mentioned that point, rightfully so, more than 50 years ago when Sheikh's teacher Maulana Ansari came to Cape Town, he inspired many youth in particular, and they were the forerunners of those who started the Muslim Students Association, the organization that we are still part of today. So alhamdulillah, with Sheikh being here, we have the manifestation of the legacy of Maulana Ansari, rahimahullah, still with us. With that said, Sheikh, alhamdulillah, it's been an eventful month throughout Rajab. Sheikh had many delegations coming to Sheikh's home. We, alhamdulillah, are just a stone throw away from the beautiful view of Table Mountain behind us, inshallah, and we have some images that we would like to show the viewers, inshallah. But at the same time, wherever Sheikh was based, Sheikh had many esteemed delegations coming to visit Sheikh, including, amongst others, the former Minister of International Relations and Cooperation of South Africa, former Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor. I would just like to ask Sheikh to expound upon that visit as well as all of the other delegations and how Sheikh could benefit them, and they also benefited from Sheikh during Sheikh's stay in Cape Town.
I was completely surprised because I only got the news late at night that she's coming to see me next morning. And we, of course, not only me, but the whole world was astonished when she was the foreign minister of South Africa, the amazing courage with which she took up Israeli oppression and genocide and took Israel to the International Court of Justice in The Hague. It was something that surprised the whole world. And I don't think the United States of America will ever forgive South Africa for that. So South Africa should be prepared now that Trump is president, that there will be a storm coming against South Africa of revenge for what South Africa did that embarrassed Israel. So I was very pleased and honored to have a visit from Foreign Minister Naledi Pandor. And she spent more than an hour with me. And we did have some very interesting discussions. I chose to utilize the chance that I had to be with her to introduce her to my teacher and to his model of scholarship and to my model of scholarship and how it differed from the Darul Uloom and how we need that model of scholarship today which can go to the Quran and explain political reality, which will go into the Quran and explain today's economic reality, who can go to the Quran and explain today's monetary reality in the world. And she was, of course, clearly impressed with that, and she was happy to meet with me. I hope that we'll be able to organize subsequently a launch of my book. I spoke to her about the book, The Quran and Russia's destiny. And my meeting with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, and she was full of praise. Oh yes, she was full of praise for Foreign Minister Lavrov. And I hope we can organize that launch in South Africa. If there is to be a launch in South Africa, there can only be one city. There can only be one city for that launch. It won't be Johannesburg. It won't be Pretoria. It won't be Durban. It has to be Cape Town. It has to be Cape Town. Because it is in Cape Town that the supporters of Israel are most entrenched. And that we can invite Foreign Minister Naledi Pandor to speak, inshallah, on that occasion.
Indeed, inshallah. And with that said, Sheikh, just before we conclude, Sheikh touched on the topic that with Trump now being in the White House once again, as Sheikh would term him the ultimate con man, he's now back in office, and therefore there will be various ramifications for us in South Africa, but also for the global community. A ceasefire had been announced in Gaza, various developments in Russia, between Russia and Ukraine, also regime change in Syria. If Sheikh could just offer a current affairs analysis regarding everything that's happening in relation to the eschatological dimensions currently.
The ceasefire in Gaza came about. There's an expression that we use in the Caribbean, that you must take in front before in front takes you. So Israel knew that once Trump becomes the president on January 20th, Trump has already said, I want the war to stop. Not because he's not supporting Israel, but because the continuation of the war is embarrassing for Trump and for the West. And the explosion of anger in the United States, particularly on the university campuses for Israel's genocide, is an embarrassment for Trump. And so he wants the war to stop. So Israel knew that once Trump becomes the president, he will force them to stop. So what Israel did was they agreed to the ceasefire before Trump could become the president. However, Trump remains an ardent supporter of Israel, and one can expect that Israel will continue her oppression and that the relentless oppression of the Palestinian people will continue. Trump has already said that he believes that the people of Gaza, who are all now pushed down to the south of Gaza, instead of going back to where their homes have already been destroyed and trying to rebuild those homes, Trump says it makes more sense for them to move to Egypt and to Jordan, which is what Israel wants. But I don't think that the Palestinian people will fall for that trick. They would prefer to remain and suffer in Gaza than to leave Gaza. And the writing is on the wall now for Trump, that there is no way he can escape, no way at all he can escape from negotiations with Russia to end the war in Ukraine. If the war does not end in Ukraine, and the war is continuing, Trump will be embarrassed, because Trump has said again and again, I can stop that war in 24 hours. And now he's changed it from 24 hours, I need 6 months. I need 6 months. So he does not have an unlimited amount of time before America starts to laugh at him. He has to negotiate with Russia, and negotiations with Russia is not going to be easy for him, because he cannot elbow his way, he cannot use gunboat diplomacy with Russia at all. And once Russia is perceived by the world to have won the war in Ukraine, Western civilization would have received a mortal blow. That's all I have to say at this time.
Indeed, Sheikh. And with that said, to conclude, Sheikh, ultimately, we are now in the holy month of Sha'ban, heading on towards the holy month of Ramadan. And as Sheikh departs Cape Town, inshallah, we would like to ask Sheikh to give some advice to all of our viewing audience, especially the youth out there, on our journey towards preparing for the month of Ramadan and ultimately receiving Ramadan what is Sheikh's main advice for us?
There are many who will speak on so many different parts of the subject. I have only one thing to say, to add to what others will be saying, preparing you for Ramadan. And that is to remind our viewing audience that there is, after the fard of fasting, the most important thing of all in the month of Ramadan is to follow the sunnah, the divine sunnah, the sunnah of Allah and the sunnah of His Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam, and that is to recite the whole Quran from cover to cover in Ramadan, number one. Number two, Allah has given an order. The order is in the Quran in Surah Al-Qiyamah. And He ordered His Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. He says, you must recite the Quran the way I recited the Quran. Fattabi Quran. When I have recited this Quran, you must follow that way of recitation. And so we have a duty to try to find out how did Allah recite the whole Quran in Ramadan, what are the ajza, plural of juz? What portion of the Quran do we recite on the first day of Ramadan? What portion in the second day, and so on. And for that I advise you to read my book, The Quran and the Moon. You don't have to buy the book, you can go to my website and download the book free of charge. The title of the book, The Quran and the Moon, and it'll tell you what is the bogus way to recite the Quran and what is the correct way to recite the Quran. If you have never done that in your life, then you should try to do it for the first time this year. When once you have recited the Quran in Ramadan, then after Ramadan, you must keep on reciting the Quran to khatam the Quran every month.
Indeed. We say shukran, jazakallah, and in the language of our forefathers, here in Cape Town, most of our forefathers are from Indonesia and Malaysia, and some from India. We say Bait Ramakasi, Ramakasi Banyak, to our beloved Sheikh Imran Hussein, who visited Cape Town, alhamdulillah, and will be departing to Durban, and thereafter Lodium as part of the South African leg of the tour, thereafter the SADC region countries, and we wish Sheikh everything of the very best, and we ask Sheikh to keep us in his du'as and he is in our du'as, and we hope to have Sheikh back in, as Sheikh indicated, the most beautiful city in the world, in Cape Town, once again, inshallah. To the viewing audience, we say thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.